Hi guys, today we are going to be looking at our fifth big question from our initial list of questions that we made on the first day of notes in Algebra 2. Today we're going to look at if I make changes in an equation, how will it affect the graph of that function? So how do changes in the function, the equation, how do the numbers affect the picture, basically? So to begin with, we're going to look at some transformations. That's the fancy word for changing or shifting or moving around a picture. So transformations. If I have this picture up here on Word, this is me at the very end of the marathon that I ran. Yes, I did it. I don't know if you guys know that, but I ran a marathon last March, so March of 2019. So don't ever tell me that you can't do something, because if you set your mind to it and you work hard, you can do anything. Because I did it, guys, 26.2 miles. It was really far. I was really tired, but I did it. So anyway, so I can take this picture of me and I can slide it around. So I can slide to the left. I can go back and slide to the right. I could also take that picture and slide it up or slide it down. We can also do some other things with this picture. We can also take this picture and we can flip it. So I'm going to flip it horizontally. So notice where my hand is. Which hand is up waving? I was waving at my family. There, look. Okay, so I flipped it horizontally. So the flip happened this way. Let's turn it back to normal. So flip it horizontally again. It'll go back to the way it was. I can also flip this vertically. So, ta-da! There I am upside down. So I flipped it vertically, up and down. I flipped it like this. Let's turn that back the way that it was. Rotations are another kind of transformation. We're not going to talk about those with regards to equations in Algebra 2, so you don't have to worry about that. Let's see, what else can I do? Oh yes, I can also stretch or compress this picture. So that's when it starts making me look weird, when you do these type of transformations. So we'll call these non-rigid transformations, because the picture doesn't stay looking exactly like it was before. Like before, I was just taking it, sliding it up, sliding it down, but I looked the same. But now look what happens. I'm going to take this and I'm going to vertically stretch it. So, oh, I can't go very far there. Or I can vertically compress it. So tall, skinny Mrs. Freeze, or not so tall, not so skinny Mrs. Freeze. So those are vertical stretches and compressions, because I'm going this way. I could also take it and I could compress it horizontally or stretch it horizontally. Notice, because I'm sliding the picture, I'm pulling it horizontally with my little arrows here. So anyway, let's take those and change them into math. So I'm going to go over here to Desmos. You will have a link to this activity on your module. Also, I need you to pull out this worksheet today that says Desmos Marbleslides Intro to Transformations at the top. Okay, we're going to be filling this in as we go. So we're using Desmos. That means we're going to be playing with things and making discoveries as we go about how these transformations are going to work. So, so this one, it says move slider H. What does H do to the graph? So I can take this slider here and click over, and it's going to move the graph around. Oh, yours will probably start where H equals 0, I'm guessing. I was already playing with mine before. That's why it wasn't starting at H equals 0. So if I make the H 1, whoa, what happens? If I make the H 2, whoa, okay. So you're going to play with moving it around, and then you're going to answer the observations over here on your worksheet. So notice in the left-hand column, I put what slide we're talking about, and you can see the slide number in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. My picture might be covering it up right now for you. I'm not really sure, but it'll be up there on your screen, so you can keep track of what slide you're on, so you're answering the right questions. So what happens as my H grows more and more positive? And what would happen if my H turns negative? You'll look at both of those styles. on that. Go on to the next slide, slide 3. You're going to play with this k number here. It's on the end after the f of x. So if I play with the k number, what happens to my picture? Oops. Oh, there's a play button there. I just clicked it accidentally. I feel like it goes a little too fast for me, so I usually pause that and then just click so I can slow down the motion of what's happening in the picture. Also, if the parabola goes off your screen, you can take your finger and your touch screen and just move this around, so that's kind of fun. So if it goes off your screen, you can just do that, or you can shrink it. If you need to, just pinch it together and you can see a little bit more of the screen that way. So you'll, oops, didn't mean to do that. So you'll see what happens as you change your k value, and it's going to affect the vertical shifts. You can tell that from the title. Let's see what's next here. Okay, on this slide, I don't know why they don't have the function turned on when you first get to it. So there's a little circle over here on the left, and that needs to be turned on so that you can see, like, this is what the function looks like plain. Here's what it looks like when there's a negative in front of the x. They didn't do a super good job on that slide, I don't think, but you can turn it on and off there. If I go on to slide number 5, same idea. If I turn it off, that's what it would look like if there was not a negative sign. If I turn that little graph picture on, that's the red is what happens when there's a negative out front of those parentheses there. So what happens with those? Now you are going to put a number out front. It says A. When the A is written right next to the F, that means you're multiplying. So A times f of x is the understood thing happening there. And so you'll play with this. What happens to my graph as my A number gets bigger and bigger and bigger? And think of it as like somebody, as these being arms, and somebody pulling on the arms and being like Elastigirl from The Incredibles, like, oh. So that might help get you a visual on that. Here your A numbers are going to be smaller than 1. Notice they are decimals. So what's happening to the arms on this one? Okay, so there's some hints for you. Okay, now we're going to get ready to go into the Marbleslides part of it. So this is kind of like what you saw on Friday. We'll go ahead and launch this one. We're hoping that the marbles hit all of the yellow stars, and woohoo, success. Here's the reminder that if you look under the gear shift key, there is a reset in case you get too confused with where you're at in one of the slides. So, okay, so this says you're going to add one number to the quadratic equation to fix the Marbleslides. So let me pause for a second. Okay, so you go ahead and do this activity up until slide 10, and when you get to slide 10, I want you to pause and watch this next part. I'm going to give you a little bit of notes, so grab your notebooks and let's write down some things. Pause. Did you do it? Okay, so what we're going to talk about is, what do these different letters mean? Well, in math, letters can serve different purposes, and our A and our H and our K here are going to stand for values that are going to be numbers in the problems that you're going to see. It's just that we get tired of saying the number out front that's multiplied by the function. So instead of saying that every time, we say, you know that number out front that's multiplied by the function? We're going to call that A. We give it a name, okay? This H value, instead of having to say the number that's subtracted from the X before you do other math in the problem that's in the parentheses with it, that'd be a lot to say. So we just say, you know that number that's subtracted from the X? We're going to call that H, okay? And then the number that's added on the back of the equation, we're going to call that K. So we just give it some names. And so on the front side of this worksheet, you have figured out some things about what these numbers do. And so the first exploration that you did had to do with the H value here. So I'm going to mark this H. in green. And that H value controlled the horizontal shifts. H for horizontal. Shifts horizontally. So this would be slide to the left, slide to the right. Or I did that backwards. Slide to the left, slide to the right. And so the way that you'll know which way it's going to slide has to do with the H value. If the H is positive, it will slide to the right. If the H is negative, it will slide to the left, which totally makes sense when you think about the number line, because on the number line, positives go to the right and negatives go to the left. Okay, so that's real logical. Here's something I want to point out to you though. You see this minus sign here? That minus sign is not part of the H value. That minus sign is part of the setup. So if you saw x minus 3, for example, that 3 would be a positive 3 because this minus sign is not part of it. It's part of the setup. Okay, so there's H. The next part of your exploration focused on the K values. And the K values, if you noticed, they shifted things up and down. So, shifts up. And that happens when the K is positive. Or down, and that happens when the K is negative. Which totally makes sense because think about your y-axis. Up is positive and down is negative. Okay, so that's logical on those. And the last value we're going to talk about is the A value here. A does two things. It's going to make things get fatter or skinnier, or stretch or compress is the technical way of saying that. And it also has the ability to flip something. So if A is greater than 1, it's going to stretch vertically. Just like I did with my picture from the marathon. Make me tall and skinny. But if the A value is less than 1, it's going to compress it, smash it together. Flatten it out. We'll talk a lot more about this idea as time goes on. Right now you're just looking for the overall things that you notice, and then you're going to play with these. So the other thing that the A does is if it's negative, it will flip it vertically. The horizontal flip, we won't do very much with. It will have to do with a negative in here. We're not going to do a lot with that this year, just a tiny little bit. But this will come up a little bit more frequently. So there are some clues that will help you as you do the next part of the activity. The slides where the challenges are. So you're going to play with things, play with different numbers, and see if you can accomplish your marble slide. So have fun, enjoy the math, and remember that Jesus loves you, and so do I, so do your math.